This video is for smart people. Every viewer right now will have the opportunity to become 2, maybe even 3 times more effective in relationships. The thing is, female manipulations are like a punch in boxing. You know there's a jab, a hook, an uppercut, but that knowledge doesn't help you dodge them. So it's not enough to just know something about female manipulations. You need to know how to react to them correctly. And here's the most effective, popular female manipulation: a fabricated grievance. She gets offended by some absolutely trivial situation. For example, a woman didn't like your tone of voice, or she interpreted your words in a way that allowed her to be deeply offended afterward. Has that ever happened to you? It's important to understand that this isn't about a delicate emotional state. It's all about the most privileged position in a relationship being the victim's position. There's nothing cooler. Why? Because a victim never owes anyone anything. A victim can only demand. And most importantly, it no longer matters how the girl treated you a day, a week, or a month ago, or what happened in your relationship before that. That's irrelevant now. What matters is that you just offended me. Well, and I got offended. That's what matters. The victim's position allows her to nullify any past mistakes, and you need to clearly understand that a reason for offense can be fabricated even in the best relationships, in any relationship. See? Like, if there's a person, there'll be a reason for offense. The most difficult situation is when there actually is a small reason for offense, and the woman simply amplifies these feelings within herself. This is the most insidious variant. Any reasonable person, if they realize they're not entirely right, wants to somehow make amends for their guilt, but in such a situation, you can't do that. When you realize that a woman is deliberately pressing on this sore spot, apologies don't solve the problem, they only worsen it, because at that moment, she's not concerned with fairness in the relationship. She's concerned with the power she very much wants to gain from the conflict, not you. She has merely taken a more advantageous position. So, if you start making excuses, it means you're definitely guilty. If you don't make excuses, well, then you're heartless, indifferent, and you don't care about the future of the relationship, which means I'm leaving. Do you know why this manipulation is so effective? It's all because it's applied at the most opportune moment. Previously, a woman saw, knew, and understood that such antics carried the risk of her simply being told off. Several years pass, and at some point the woman feels that getting offended will work, and the man finds himself in a very difficult situation because the woman has been behaving adequately for 3 years, 5 years in a row. She can't just suddenly go crazy on the 4th year and start getting offended for no reason. Apparently you really did something wrong. Men think more or less like this, and to figure out what's really going on, it's enough to ask yourself one question. What would have happened if a similar, identical situation had occurred in the past? For example, 3 months into your relationship, just think about it. If you realize that back then, the woman wouldn't have paid any attention to such a trifle, it means you're being exploited for gain right now, definitely not for feelings. Such behavior should be perceived as a woman's mistake. Her mistake, not yours. That is, in such a situation, the woman, of course, should apologize for her behavior, or at least try to reconcile. And what's the dirtiest trick? It's very easy to make a man feel worthless. For this, a woman just needs to tell him how her ex gave her an expensive ring, which he can't afford, or took her to Bali, or had a cool car, or was buff, or made her laugh all the time. In short, the girl highlights the competitive advantages of her ex or some friend of hers, and she subtly hints that you're inferior to him in some way, but not overtly. And it's impossible to remain indifferent to this, because a man is hierarchical by nature, and when a girl states that another guy was better in one aspect, you inevitably start comparing yourself to him, and not in your favor. And the woman pushes for this. She wants you to seek confirmation of your worth in her words, in her evaluations. This is a subtle, dirty trick that's very hard to call her out on. It's like being accidentally pushed in the subway to take your spot. If you start arguing, you know what happens. They'll say, "What, are you crazy? It was an accident." And if you get offended, immediately upset when the woman starts throwing all this at you, they'll say, "How insecure and unbalanced you are." And in this situation, trying to respond in kind. But you shouldn't talk about some ex of yours with a confident D-cup. Women know the rules of this game too well, so she'll most likely reply, "Poor girl, how difficult it must be for her to move around with such an asset. I truly sympathize." Therefore, Such a situation is not one where we need to cleverly outplay the woman. The only correct step in such a situation is to draw the right conclusions. But the dirtiest part is when manipulation through comparison happens within the relationship. This is the absolute dirtiest trick. The girl tells you that someone is paying attention to her, like her boss, an ex, someone else wants something from her. She tries to frame the situation so that there's nothing you can really accuse her of, like, me? I did nothing. It's all them. Well, I guess I'm just pretty. And in 98% of cases, this is a lie. Think about why she's telling you all this. Could she have immediately stopped such communication, such attempts at interaction with other men? Of course she could have, but apparently she didn't. You don't need to ask her why this communication continues. About the ex, she'll say, "Oh, we're just friends," or "He contacts me himself." Yeah. About some old classmate, she'll say more or less the same thing. And the boss, well, he's the boss, and that's it. And work is very important to her, even more important than relationships, judging by what she's doing. In short, the main thing is to grasp the essence. She plays the part of the faithful, untouchable girl with all of them, collects points, and then teases you with it. As a result, her value grows. Not just for you, but for you, and for bosses, and for exes, and for the classmate, for everyone, even for her friends. And the cunning of this trick lies in the fact that the girl highlights the attention she receives, implying that she has no plans to do anything about this problem. You just need to be aware of what's happening, but she's not ready to take any clear, radical steps. She's not doing anything about it, and it's clear why she's not, because there's no need to get rid of something that is actually beneficial and pleasant for her. The main goal is to make all of you participate in this auction, and the most interesting thing is that the one who wins this auction is the one who first decides not to participate in it. Female manipulation is hidden dominance. How does it look? A woman often, perhaps with a smile, tells you no. For example, you approach her, "Let's go there, there." "No." "Let's meet my friends." "No." "Let's live together." "Well, no." And it doesn't matter how affectionately or how convincingly a woman explains her refusal. What matters is that your initiative is being shut down, and then, after some time, the woman suddenly agrees to something. You clap your hands and rejoice, but it was already her decision, not yours. The person who slightly slows down a relationship is the one who controls it, so she slows it down. This manipulation works purely on internal chemistry. When a person has been denied something many times, and then it's finally allowed, there's a dopamine surge, several times higher, and each refusal increases the value of agreement. That is, if you fall for it, you start thinking irrationally. You convince yourself, being with such a stubborn woman is exclusively your choice. It's the right choice. It's a very sound decision, because the high dopamine level forces compels you to evaluate a bad relationship as the best and most suitable option. But it's the woman who controls such relationships, because the dopamine dispenser is in her hands, not yours. What do you need to do to balance this out? Well, if a woman refuses something, you absolutely must not offer it again, under no circumstances. Ever. Moreover, you need to make sure she has to work for it. That is, if she refused today, and then changed her mind and agreed a week or a month later, you can't instantly fall for it. The woman should feel the value of your initiative. She should clearly understand that your offers are not unlimited in time, and therefore it would have been better to agree to them. But under no circumstances should you tell the woman this directly. You shouldn't do it. "I offered it to you, but you didn't want it, right?" You need to play it more subtly. Just say, "Listen, now's not the best time. Let's do it a little later." That would be the ideal scenario. There's also this female manipulation, playing dumb. This is when a girl declares, "I have a difficult personality." I highly don't recommend getting involved with a woman who says this, and who essentially states that she can't influence her character, temperament, or behavior. A person either gets better or worse every day. If a woman says, "Take me as I am," then know she definitely can't influence her behavior. She doesn't want to influence it. She fundamentally refuses to. The woman directly, bluntly tells you, "I won't change, I won't adapt, you'll do all that, or there won't be a relationship at all." And you understand, if you agree, then don't complain later. I warned you. And the most surprising thing is that there are men who get into this adventure. If a woman rejects the very idea of changing at any stage of the relationship, then things are already bad. Normal people in normal relationships should not only acknowledge their own imperfections, but also do something every day to become better. So when a girl says, "Take me as I am," she is thereby saying, "Listen, darling, I don't have time to pretend to be good for your sake." That's her real attitude. There's another special type of women. Such women declare that two personalities live within her. The first is kind and affectionate, overflowing with love for the man, and the second is her dark side, which arose as a result of negative past experiences. So what is the man supposed to do with this? The bright side, of course, must be loved, and the dark side must be tolerated, not offended, and the bad deeds of this side, that is, the dark side, should not spoil the overall positive impression. If you do not adhere to this principle, the dark side will not like it and will begin to break out more often. You must understand that all stories where a woman begins to appeal to some traumas, energies, negative experiences, intuition, feelings, this is always a destructive scenario. It is impossible to agree on anything with such a person. The next manipulation is called, "You're not my husband." This is the story where a man asks for something or forbids something bad, and the girl says, "No, I don't see a ring on my finger." So one piece of advice, when you hear any strange phrase from a woman, just try to reverse it. Imagine, a girl wants a few roses, or wants you to pick her up late in the evening after work, and the man says, "Well, you're not my wife, I won't do anything, I don't owe you anything." The most poisonous female manipulation is emotional escalation. Believe me, it's very easy to convince a man that he just did something terrible, and the shortest path to this lies through emotional pressure, because arguments can be reasoned with, arguments can be disputed, but emotions cannot be disputed, because facts are not proof. The next female manipulation is this uncertainty about tomorrow, mood swings. This is also a manipulation, subtle, hidden. The thing is, any uncertainty makes you stir and worry about it, become anxious. Being in a suspended, agonizing state of uncertainty is actually the most terrible state for the human psyche, because with negative certainty, that is, you know what's bad, but you know you can come to terms with it, but it's impossible to adapt to the unknown by definition. And when a woman starts to torment you with uncertainty, the chance to get away from her exists only at the very beginning, when you haven't yet, so to speak, become hooked on her, because the longer you remain in this state, the lower your potential to make decisions for your own salvation. But at the beginning of a relationship, this is sometimes done with a childlike smile on her face. She might flirt, she might say all this tactfully, or she might even include some elements of flirtation. But within a relationship, it's most often done with a displeased grimace on her face, meaning the woman says, "I'm not sure about our relationship," but for some reason, she leaves hope, which is precisely what drives you crazy. Hope for some happy, fulfilling future. And every time a man agrees to uncertainty, he worsens an already sad ending. The most important thing to understand here is that demanding certainty from a woman is a complete failure, because that's exactly what she wants from you. For you to create certainty not with your own hands, not with your own actions, but to wait for certainty from her, and you hand over all control over decisions to her. Sooner or later, what happens? The man goes crazy and starts being too demanding, and at that moment he hears the phrase, "You ruined everything. I needed time to think, and now it's over." Therefore, in case of such uncertainty, it's better to make your own decision. Generally, if we talk about all these biological programs of love, about the laws of falling in love, at first glance they seem to work very absurdly, but in reality, that's not the case. There's logic in them too. It's just not the logic we've been taught since childhood. To notice this, you don't necessarily need a lot of communication. You can usually get almost any woman to have an honest conversation and find out that she loved and invested the most in her life in a person who was either indifferent or didn't plan anything serious at all, or eventually left her. Is it important for a woman to feel secure in a relationship? Yes, it is. But there's a nuance here. It seems that for this, you just need to choose a man who will fall powerfully in love with you, who will be ready to subordinate his entire life, sacrifice his interests, his comfort, so that the woman is happy. And let's be honest and direct. Are there many such men ready to give everything? Many such men? The vast majority. But why aren't they chosen? Why are they left? Why doesn't it work? Why do we simultaneously see situations where a woman can meet a person who treats her carelessly, no, indifferently, and with him she feels this security? Because he is simply perceived as a more strong-willed, stronger person. Is this true or not? Often it's not true. He's just indifferent to her. He simply wasn't captivated. And the first one, who is romantically inclined, his willpower might be much higher than the second's. That is, a woman measures a man's strength not by external achievements. Therefore, an indifferent weakling can be perceived by a woman as strong, and a romantic can be perceived as a wimp. And what exacerbates this problem is that men themselves romanticize relationships. They want this themselves. Actually, there's nothing terrible about female manipulations. What's terrible is something else. That the emotional maturation of many men stopped at the age of 13 and doesn't move forward. First, such a man believes that relationships and family can be built with all or most women. If a person thinks this, he knows absolutely nothing about life. He simply lives in an alternative reality, in a world of pink ponies. Second point. Such a man believes that a woman is capable of making strong-willed decisions in her personal life within a relationship. She can go through a process of deep reflection, against her feelings, and do what is necessary. A man genuinely wants in his personal life that if she said, "I want a family," then she definitely wants one, and in 2 years, when children appear, she won't change her mind and will never regret it, that she definitely knows what kind of men she likes. She can say in detail what behavior is necessary, what conditions are needed for her to continue to love you, and so on. That is, one of the most popular phrases and applications is, "But she told me." There's a man who has left his observations on women's behavior, but basically believes her words, and when you try to tell him, "Listen, look, here's a contradiction, here, this is one continuous contradiction. Do you understand this?" Well, yes, a little strange, but she also told me. Thus, the key to successful relationships lies not in blind trust or attempts to please, but in a deep understanding of female psychology and the ability to adequately react to hidden manipulations. Only by recognizing and accepting reality can men avoid the traps that turn them into wimps and allow women to control their lives, dictating their rules. True strength lies not in submission, but in the ability to maintain one's identity, assert one's boundaries, and build relationships on mutual respect and transparency.